So it's not far till Christmas now, is it? I was reminded by a client earlier.
Thanks for that.
90 days now. 90?
Great, isn't it? I can't believe we're in October already.
Scary.
Bye.
It's going to be a bit different, I think.
Has anyone still got any Christmas markets running? So is the Manchester one cancelled now, Scott?
I think there were talks about they were going to cancel it, and Liverpool are going to cancel as well. So it's a case of wait and see what's going to happen. I just can't see how they're going to put all these measures into place now and then say in December off we go and have Christmas markets and stuff. And I think it would be kind of hard to have it in a social distance measure.
It's impossible, isn't it?
So it's going to be it's going to hit kind of those. It's really hard because it draws crowds in, doesn't it?
It's the same with us.
Yeah.
I like a Christmas market as well.
Bath cancelled, and that used to be that was your prime fortnight in the year, really, for leisure travel.
Really,
but you understand why it's cancelled, but such a shame.
Yeah, we'll get there. So everyone's talking about unity now, aren't they? And just letting it go. So I think they were campaigning in the government yesterday. Did anyone read that one?
No.
So herd immunity, let everyone feel the very vulnerable and let everyone else get it, which is what the Swedish did quite early on, and they're through it now. So it's a bit controversial. So.
They tried that to start with, didn't they?
I think they're discreetly doing it, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
To go to university was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to stay in sixes, are they? So lovely. So just to welcome everyone onto our webinar. So if anyone's joined us before, this is webinar 8 of our series. It's actually the final one of this series, which is really just to summarise quite a good topic, and hopefully everyone's kind of looking at this stage of their process now of how to prepare for your first day. And it's not only just to look at yourself as someone who's joining a business and what you can do to make probably your first day or first week go as smoothly as possible, but it's actually really what you should expect from an employer as well in regards to the onboarding process, because it does vary for some very good ones to some that need a bit of work. So I'm pleased to have some really good guests join us today, who are obviously could probably speak from both sides of the coin, really, in regards to starting new jobs themselves, as well as in employing people and onboarding people. So big welcome to them. So just a bit of admin to kick off before we start. So as always, our webinars, we try and keep them down to an hour long, and in terms of any questions along the way, just pop them into the question box, and then we'll answer them towards the end. We will record this as well, so it will go onto our website as well as our YouTube channel as well. So if you find it informative, or you have to nip out to take a call and miss any, then you can just rewatch it afterwards. So if our guests could kick off by introducing themselves, that'd be great.
Sure. I'm Karl Wilson. I've been working in hotels for 20 years, starting with Marriott on their graduate program, then working way up on that in the management, then moved to an independent hotel called Brooklands Hotel and opened that. And then for the past 7 years, I've been working with Sarova Hotels at two of their properties in the south, the Bull Hotel and Sir Christopher Wren Hotel. But unfortunately, as a lot of people out there, was made redundant in July through restructure and COVID.
Cool, thanks, Karl. Keith?
Hi, I'm Keith. I hate to admit it, I've been in it even longer than Karl, with 30 years. I, on graduation, joined De Vere on their training programme, worked my way up to general manager. I've managed 3 moat houses, 3 Q hotels, and then my last position was with Handpicked Hotels down in Bath.
Lovely. How about you, Scott?
Yes, I'm Scott Montgomery. I've worked in hospitality for 20 years, predominantly in sales. I started off with Jarvis Hotels in Hurley, near Maidenhead, for about 4 years. Moved up north and worked opening the Radisson in Liverpool, the Hilton in Liverpool. I've done a national role with De Vere. I've done cluster roles with Hallmark Hotels and also with Thistle Hotels as well. So I've worked with them for a number of years, both on property and in a regional role. And then up until recently, in July, I was made redundant with Event City as business development manager due to COVID. And I'd been there for around about 9 months, which was a great time to be with them because they're looking at opening a new venue in next year, which has obviously been pulled now because of COVID. So yeah, just found myself in the same boat as most other people where we're kind of looking for new opportunities and where we can transfer those skills into.
Yeah, so we've all got something in common in terms of the job market. So just goes to show there's some very good people who are looking for jobs at the moment. So, Like you, Katie, what do you do?
Well, I actually started my career at Moathouse Hotels as a receptionist many moons ago, and then worked my way up through the ranks within sales, worked for the Belfry, Celtic Manor, Marriott, before then moving into recruitment and specialising in sales, revenue, marketing. I think me and Scott have had a few conversations before.
Yeah.
And now just sort of broadening the horizons really and learning a few more skills in sort of recruiting for different sectors and different roles within hospitality. So here I am.
Cool, thank you, Katie. So yeah, to kick things off, so let me go with this slide. So I guess, yeah, what we want to discuss today is really how to prepare your first day. And for me, I think preparing for your first day from both the employer and the employee, I think it's really important to kick that off from as soon as the job offer is made, really. I think I spoke to someone earlier, it's definitely one of you earlier this morning, we kind of echoed our thoughts that throughout all of our webinars, that communication is quite key in terms of what we do. So so from day one, as soon as your job offer is made, I think it's good to start communicating with your next boss or, the boss is employing, communicate with the employee. So what's everyone's thoughts in terms of, generally speaking, what's best to prepare for your first day? What have you done in the past as employees?
Well, for myself, inductions that have kind of really worked well with other companies I've worked with is where you've had the 4-week plan sent across to you firsthand, so you're able to see what that first week looks like, what your first day looks like. It kind of gives you an opportunity to have those questions written down before you go into the job on the first day, and kind of understand what that first week is going to be, and understand and kind of look at the names that you're going to be working with over those next couple of weeks and find out a bit about them as well. So reach out to them and kind of say, I'm looking forward to meeting you on Tuesday of next week, or whatever day it is, and kind of have that communication there with them. And it kind of just gives you an understanding as to what's expected, without going in there kind of feeling nervous that you're going to be anyway. But it kind of puts some meat onto the bones as to what am I going to do on Monday morning when I arrive at that property.
Yeah, it's always a bit daunting, isn't it? It's one of the most stressful experiences, isn't it? Moving house, getting married, having kids, starting new jobs. I think it's really, really important to try and make it go smoothly. What about you guys?
I think it's sort of important to, if you've got that induction, like Scott said, which you know who you're meeting when, which is crucial. As a senior manager that maybe has other managers reporting into them, say, that you try and, if you know you're meeting these people, have a structure that what you want to understand and what you want to know out of that meeting, because so often, HODs will come in and show you around their department or their bit, and you won't get much substance from it. You'll get to understand them a little bit, but maybe there's certain things like, you know, finding out about them, their circumstances, how they like to be managed or interact, etc. What they want from you, and it puts sort of some structure behind it, which I always think helps, and you can sort of, it's vital to listen is the key thing. Let people talk much more than you, because you're the new person, and you know they should know best. It's their business, and you're new to it.
No, absolutely. What about you, Keith? What would you do?
Totally agree. I think we've got to admit that when you start a job, your job starts the minute that you accept the offer. So you've got a period, up to 3 months to plan. You know, certainly when I took my last position, you know, I obviously visited the property. I did a mystery guest. I asked for a blank mystery guest so that I wasn't going in, you know, with opinions. Yeah. Learned the brand standards. In fact, I even took a day off and went to the budget review. So at least I got an indication of what the figures were going to be like for the year ahead that I was going to be joining them. So there's a great opportunity there. And as an employer, you know, I love it when I hear, oh, you know, Karl's been in touch. He's really looking forward to starting. It really does make a difference to the HR team and to the employer to know that you've got somebody who's got an interest. You know, they're not taking the job because they have to. They're taking the job because they want to. And for me, there's nothing better than hearing that somebody's had the initiative to phone up and communicate in advance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Are you, Katie?
I think, well, certainly when I joined Talent Hive, I initially sort of connected with who are now my colleagues via sort of LinkedIn, and just general looking forward to working with you. Shied engaged in a bit of conversation in regards to sort of how things are going, but yeah, just to build a bit of rapport before. And I suppose you can stalk these days, so you know what people look like when you walk through the door. You know who they are. But then sort of when I was in hotels, certainly that, making sure, you know, you would go, especially if you had a long notice period, going into the properties, keeping an eye on things and what was going on, and just keep engaging with who your line managers are going to be, and communicating.
Okay. And what about as an employer? What? I think we spoke about what good looks like. I mean, as an employer, what would you do to onboard someone? What would your communications be, or what would a future employee expect to kind of experience from the next employee before they start? What does good look like?
I think if we go back to what Scott said, is that for somebody who've taken the time to have a 2 or a 4 week plan for you, they've told you where you park, they've told you what uniform or the dress code if it's not somewhere where the uniform is, so you're not left with that. They've told you what they're doing for lunch. You know, do you make your own lunch on the first day, or panic and find out you haven't got one? Yeah, there's all those things that as a new starter will go through your mind. So it's covering all those bases in advance, giving you the opportunity to feel that you're comfortable going in. We mentioned earlier, Will, that somebody far cleverer than me who understands millennials said that they make their mind up about a job within 20 to 40 hours. So as employers, you know, we've only got a really short period of time to let somebody know that the culture that we've created is one that they want to be part of.
Yeah. What's your experience? Have you noticed the younger generations coming through don't stick around as long, or?
I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I'd say the expectations about the culture of the business and the ethos of the business have definitely changed. At one point, it was about the job and the career prospects. Now there's a lot more about they want to know, why do we do things? Why do we do it that way? You know, what is our ethical stance? You know, they're very savvy people.
I think it could be a lot more about what they can get. But I think there might be a bit more choice out there these days. So if they don't like a role, doesn't feel right within that 24 to 40 hours, then they could just, you know, go and get another job around the corner. Do you think that might have an effect on it?
in the past it may have done. I think it may have changed now.
Yeah.
But in the last few years, I would say yes. People are. It's much more fickle out there. But a reset button may have been pressed.
So what would you do then to make them feel special in that 24 hours? Kind of welcome packs or team lunches, or?
It depends on sort of what level, but it's all about exactly that. It's all about the welcome. Before they come on board, it's taking the contacting them personally, not just HR. But I think personally, if you're going to be working with them a lot, it's important that you speak a lot. And then when they get there, especially in hotels, we all know what offices can be like, shall we say. They're not always the nicest and most organised places, especially food and beverage. And things like that, make sure their desk is clean, tidy. They've got the stapler, they've got the pens and pencils, they've got a pad ready, they've got, and all of that. So actually when they turn up, they're expected. Yeah. The other thing which I've done in the past sometimes is, get their team, say a restaurant manager, for example, is coming on board, and get their team to actually write them, or the other HODs write them a welcome card. It takes no time whatsoever. It doesn't cost, but actually the impact on that person coming in is that as a new person, you want to be expected and you want to be wanted. And something like that does give that. Just like, Keith mentioned, if you're the person coming on board, and I'm the new boss, you want to know that they actually do want to come here and are excited about it, and that they're contacting in advance. It's that sort of thing, really, to keep it welcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
We haven't yet mentioned buddies, but I think it's key that you've got a buddy or a peer that you can rely on. So, somebody in the same job. I think my best induction was having 2 days at other people's hotels, taking part in their hotels inductions and sort of ran values with dinner with another general manager and an overnight stay at another hotel. So, I think I was on day 5 before I actually got into my own pub. And that was superb because I'd already met somebody and got a feel for, the culture and the values. And I think, we shouldn't underestimate having somebody that you can pick up the phone to or talk to in whatever position you're in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, in terms of some of the best inductions I've seen some of my clients do, they'll go, some people won't go into their site till like week 3. They'll go and spend a good couple of weeks at, a centre of excellence, a flagship site, and know what good looks like. So when they go back to theirs, they've learnt the systems, the ordering. It's all the little things, isn't it? And then when they go into their site, they actually know what's to be expected of the business rather than just that site. And you kind of create buddies, etc. I mean, we do the buddy system here. It's good to have a boss to learn from, but it's good to also have someone on an equal level. You can just ask those nitty kind of small questions, really, like daft questions you don't want to interrupt anyone about. So it does help. What about you, Scott?
I think it's like making sure that you got the relevant paperwork ready, available, so they can complete it, so there's no delays in getting paid and so on. You've prompted doing all of the IT logins and so on, so they're able to log onto the systems and start the training. Because there's been a number of times when that's been a delay for about 3 or 4 days, so you're not actively able to start the training. So you've just sat there twiddling your thumbs, watching somebody else while they're busy doing their things. So it's it can kind of put you on the spot a little bit. So I think as much whatever we send to the individual, that they can fill in before on day 1 of coming to start the job. But it's making sure that the individuals as well that you're starting the training with on day 1, they know that person's coming, and it's not just put upon them as a surprise that you're doing half a day training with Sally in the office or whatever, and they don't expect this person to be coming and joining them, because it can make the other person feel a little bit like unwanted and not part of the team. So I think that's kind of important, that everybody knows what the plan is, and they stick to the plan, and it doesn't kind of change, because it makes that person feel that they're part of that organisation.
Yeah. No, we always try and get all our team involved. So a couple of the team members will take the newbie out for lunch on day one.
Yeah.
I think probably people they aren't directly working with, so they can get to know other people in the office rather than wondering who there are. So it just makes in day one. I think you try and make day one as light as possible. You know, it's not too systems focused. It's just team. This is us. This is our expectation. Do the kind of the boring stuff like the contracts and the policies and the fire exit is and all that jazz, and then kind of. And I actually always do day one on a Wednesday. So I feel that as someone who's inducting someone who's also got a busy role, I think I can clear my desk enough on a Monday and Tuesday. So when someone starts us on a Wednesday, I can give them their full attention rather than everyone knows what their emails are doing on a Monday morning, getting interrupted. So we always do a kind of Wednesday start date usually. So it gives me the ability to do a proper 3 days with them, give them all the focus, which I think relates to Scott's point there, that don't shove, a new employee on someone without them knowing, because the existing mentor or employee probably already had plans for that day, and it throws just a bit of awkwardness really, isn't it? So and definitely I think Scott touched on in terms of letting the new employee know their schedule for the first kind of 2 or 4 weeks before they start, so they can kind of mentally prepare. I think it's really good. Yeah, definitely. So what about bad experiences then? Because we've talked about good so far. What's the worst induction or first day you've ever had? Did you get past 20 hours?
I didn't have a desk once when I started. No desk or no laptop. It wasn't here. I've had, although I've been given induction plans for sort of a 4-week period before, working in a large resort and a large resort with sort of multiple areas and not knowing your way around. For me, it was really important that I actually did have a buddy that could show me where I was going, instead of getting lost and turning up for where you were meant to be going late. So I had a bit of a bad experience at one point, not being chaperoned, if you like. Didn't need anyone to hold my hand, but someone to show me where I was going would have been a bit helpful in that first sort of week or so.
Cool. You guys, any bad ones?
I've been sent to a wrong property once, and I was supposed to be somewhere else, which didn't look great. So I was panicking, thinking I'm late now. I'm not on time. They're not going to think I'm not punctual, because then everything else starts clocking up in your head. And but it wasn't through any fault of my own. I just was told to go to a different property, and they didn't think I'd arrived. So it was one of those. But I see the funny side of it now. At the time, it definitely wasn't funny. But it's yeah,
absolutely.
I think it can, day one can be information overload if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes some of that is so important information that actually it's worth doing sort of in week 2, not week 1, because you might actually remember it then, because how much do you remember from day 1 anyway? That can get really, really heavy and too much if it's too much information. And, we all know hospitality and hotels in particular, jargon is off the scale, and actually, and it's not always the same jargon just because it's a hotel. If it's a different company, it's different jargon. I think you have to be careful with that.
I think I'd have to go back a long way in my career to I wouldn't say it was a bad induction. In my youth, working my way up, I had an intercompany move specifically to focus on conference and banqueting in a well-known 5-star South Coast hotel. And I got there, and on day 2 there was a management meeting, and the GM said, and this is Keith, and he's going to really focus on F&B and talk through a whole list of things that were not what had been discussed for me going there. Obviously be a lot easier now with the emails and mobiles and everything else, but yeah, that was a bit of a shock to find out I was just going to repeat what I'd done previously in a different venue.
Oh, right. So it wasn't what you go there for start. Were they expecting?
No, it wasn't the purpose of going there, which I thought had been clarified, but obviously not.
Yeah.
Although he was quite whimsical, so.
Was it a mistake, or
No,
as
no.
in what he said
Never.
was a mistake, or did you actually just have to go through with it then?
I went with it. He was, I think, what's a well-known and characterful general manager. So wasn't somebody necessarily to cross in your first few weeks.
Right.
I just rolled with it and hopefully proved my worth.
Politely nodded. Excellent. What about you as an employee? Any kind of, any mistakes you've made? Usually when we're younger, isn't it? In terms of getting there on day one or doing something wrong.
Is that aimed at me? Yeah, I was late on my first day starting here. Was it about half an hour late because I got stuck on the M6. So plan your route. I should have gone the back way, but decided to go on a motorway on. Oh, it was a Friday though, wasn't it? My first day.
Yeah, that was weird.
Started on a Friday, yeah. So expected the traffic not to be as bad as it was. So leave plenty of time to get to work.
Turn on your sat nav with traffic update.
But I did have a nice bottle of wine and some chocolates when I got here. So
yeah, welcome back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. I'm trying to remember any of my bad ones really. I think I might have only slept when I was a young chef when I had a job in Manchester like day two. That's no good. But I think for any maybe more junior candidates out there and who are starting their day one, bit of advice I can give. I was weirdly, because I'm a bit gobby and chatty these days, but I was actually really, really quiet when I was younger. So I hardly spoke a word when I was in kitchens when I was kind of 18, 19, which Katie's like, I don't believe that. Even if it's like kind of mind thing, because what we get is, candidates don't work out. And then when you do a debrief with a candidate and you're like, why didn't it work? And most of it is they haven't asked questions along the way. They haven't felt confident they can query stuff like, how do I book holiday? Or how do I do this? Or my uniform's wrong, etc. So I kind of any to those who are quite early on in their career, or just really don't be afraid to ask. And I think it probably relates to Karl's comment in regards to jargon as well. If you don't know it, ask. It's they know everything from day one. And sometimes I think if you don't, you're not confident enough to ask, then it'll just spiral really. You'll feel a bit kind of uncomfortable in your role. So yeah, every business is different.
I think sales officers are the worst for jargon as well. DDR, 24 hour.
Yeah.
BEO. What's a BEO? Oh.
No,
there you go. You probably worked off loads of them before in the past, but don't actually know what they're called.
Yeah, and every business is different. Even recruitment businesses have all got different ways of doing things. So it's be confident enough to ask them, how do you do this as a business, rather than, or maybe just give them solutions and stuff and ask them along the way. So, and yeah, probably referring back to Karl's comment in regards to information overload. I think we do systems training on day two, and I think you get about a month in, and half the systems training isn't there. And I always blame the trainer, which is usually me. But yeah, it's nothing wrong with going back. And what about kind of? I think we spoke about the first day. What about the induction process? I mean, how long do you feel the induction process should be? Is it a month? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months?
I think it's depending on the role what you're doing. So if you're doing a cluster role, or I would imagine that would it does differ from an on-property role. So I think depending on the role that you're actually doing and expected to do depends upon the length of time that induction would take place. But as I was just saying about buddies, when I was with Hallmark, I was a buddy for a number of employees that would join it, and it kind of gave them that sense of there's always that someone to go to, that if they want to ask a silly question, and no question silly, that I've got that person I can pick up the phone to and ask that question and feel more comfortable doing it without feeling uncomfortable asking. But I think that has always worked really well. and even from senior management as well. When we did the top talent program, you always have that within the senior leadership team that you could go to and ask a question because they were your buddy, and it helped develop those individuals to go on to the next level.
Yeah, I think it's usually those kind of IT and technical questions. I think it's the daft questions you don't ask your boss and irritate them about, but you really want to find out how do you do that? How do you book something online, or how do you? Because everyone's got different software platforms and ordering systems and intranet. Does everyone still use intranet? Is that still knocking around? But yeah, kind of internal systems is usually. What about, as an employer, how regularly would you have one-to-ones with a new starter? And when would you do them?
I think in terms of as a new HOD, I would have them certainly weekly in the first month. So at the end of each week for the first 4 weeks. Not necessarily particularly documented or anything like that, but just to catch up with them. How are they? What have they seen? What have they noticed? What do they need? And then I think it's actually important after a month to actually give them some pretty short, but some sort of targets. Not necessarily numerical targets or anything like that, but things to aim towards during their induction period. To me, the induction period is 3 months. It doesn't mean they're going through induction for 3 months, but we all know that the part of the recruitment process and the cost of it is that 3-month training, because people aren't efficient and up to speed with understanding everything. So that is how long their induction is. And then it can be, the communication is a two-way thing regularly, and an understanding, and they've got a convenient line in and out to their line manager, which I think is key.
Yeah, open door policy and all that.
Most companies I've worked for have, as well as as Karl says, the informal side, have had like a 3, 6 and 12 week review, which ties in with that 3 months. Really, we should know where we're going.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that, people do have targets. I think, if you can give somebody a task, if that's the right word, early on, they're going to feel valued by that, we've considered them, although they're in induction, to actually take something and move it forward. And it'll also give you an indication of, how good a self-starter they are.
Yeah. I think it's really good on day one or week one maybe, or even week 2, because it could be information overload, but just to sit down and kind of create objectives together, rather than saying this is what I expect. I always kind of flip it and say, well, where do you want to be? Week 1, month 1, 6 months, what do you want to be in the business? And I think it's good to not have them kind of set in stone and rigid, and you're bad if you never hit these, but I think it's good to kind of create some kind of guidance of so you can fill the employer's expectations of this role, as well as and the employer can feel what you think you want to achieve and support it. So I think it's good to get that nailed quite early on.
And I think they need time to find out what the expectations are, because invariably, you start a new job and there'll be the official expectations, but then there'll be other people who've got other expectations. Yeah. You start in a sales office, the chef's got a different expectation from you than from the GM. The chef wants his, you've never heard of a BEO, but he wants his BEOs at a certain time, and there's never going to be any changes on them. Yeah. Heaven forbid. Everybody's got a different expectation. So you have to learn what the informal expectations are, and then seek clarity to find out which are the ones that are really the ones that matter. And, that takes time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think with your inductions as well, it's to use the time that you're given wisely, because you're not going to get that time back. So use the time to complete the courses that you expect to complete, because you won't be given, that time will not become, you won't have that time again. And I think you've seen that a number of times when I've been in roles where you think, I'll put that back to next week, but then next week comes and something else has come along, and then you've not done the training that's required within that 3 months. So it becomes a mad rush in the last week. So just use the time that you're given efficiently and wisely, and plan what you have to do in the time that you're given, and make sure it's not just a rush job, because you will it will catch you up again later on.
And what's the normal kind of induction training for hotels these days? Is it mainly online now? It seems to be where everyone's going, or are people still delivering it face to face? All those modules you get given.
I think the formal training, the health and safety, and all of that, that's all online.
Yeah.
But company induction, I would say, is face to face.
Cool. Okay.
I don't think you can't really have an induction just all online, because
it's kind of training modules, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but all properties are different, aren't they? I don't even think any of the big companies, even though they've got multiple properties, I don't think they can align everything to be exactly the same, because all properties work differently. And like what Keith mentioned about head chefs and sales officers, I think for me it was really important to sort of be able to go to a head chef and know what his expectations were going to be of me as a sales office manager and our team, so that I could enforce that we've met in the middle. I mean, don't get me wrong, a chef always wants his BO 2 weeks before, and it's never going to change, but there's just that understanding between departments, I guess. And typically ops teams don't like the sales team as well, and but just hammering down why and trying to come to that happy medium really right from the get-go, I think is really important.
Yeah, chef versus sales team.
They never win.
No, I totally agree with Karl that everything statutory is now online, but when it comes to induction, and particularly if you're doing company values, that's not, that's something that has to be hands-on. It has to be active, ideally in a group induction, not an individual induction, and that can't be done online. It goes against most companies' actual values and ethos to actually do it online.
Yeah, it's more the kind of health and safety stuff and the policies and stuff, and it is a bit of a kind of paper trace exercise, isn't it, for accountability and everything else. So
especially if you're doing company inductions as a group, because it really gets you engaged in doing workshops on what the values are about, and getting people to really think about the values and what they actually bring to the table. And it also gives an opportunity to bring other people that have been within the business for a number of years to come in and speak to the team and tell them about what their journey's been, and really get them engaged within the company, to think, well, actually I could be that person as well if I applied the same work attitude and everything else around it, and I could be that person in 3 or 4 years. So it really gets them thinking about, well, I'm in the job now, where do I see myself being in the next 3 or 4 years? And by having those people coming in, it really just kind of help people kind of stay within the team as such.
Get past the first 20 hours.
Yeah.
Going to be creating that personal progression plan from day one. I think it is, and I think hopefully you can get engaged with people by getting them to aspire to, to more senior members. It's probably your team's responsibility to sell the job to them, because like anything, like when you buy a house, you don't know the house inside out, do you? Until you actually get into it. It's a bit like a job. It's great, and you've seen a nice website, you've met some key members of the team, boss, etc. But you don't know the job until you really start. So I think it's quite important to get your head around it. So what about one killer piece of advice you could give to us as an employee, how to prepare for your first day?
Don't go on the M6.
And go to the right hotel.
Go to the right hotel.
For me, would be to research, do your background, know what you're going into, and just make sure that you listen, observe, and think if you've got any questions, write them down straight away, because you may forget them when you're going in. And really, it just shows that you've been really thorough and you've really thought about the job, and it really comes across well on day one if you've got those questions sitting there already, which are aligned to the job role that you're actually doing. And it just shows a bit of planning.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else got some killer advice?
I think you've got to own your induction.
Hmm.
Yes, somebody else has provided it to you, but it ain't going to happen. And you know, Scott said a few minutes ago about use your time effectively and don't leave it to the end. You've got to own that induction, because that's your one opportunity. It's one opportunity for you to learn, but also for you to let your colleagues, your peers know, your boss know that you can actually do that job.
Hmm. Yeah, show your intentions, absolutely.
I think it's, you know, it's so easy. You're all excited. You go in and you've got a million ideas and this, that, and the other. And that's fantastic and really important. But actually, you need to just to watch and listen to people. You know, at the end of the day, you need that, the people around you in a new job, you need them. And they're the experts. It doesn't mean they're always right, but they are the experts. So listen, don't judge them. Don't judge what happens. Write it all down. Write all your observations down, but listen to what they say, because, you know, how many times have you heard people that are new and 2 days into their job? When I was we did it like this.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not always the best way to start. We all do it. But you've got to listen and then make your mind up, because your mind on day 2 about what needs to happen will probably be completely different to your mind in week 4, because there's reality of what life is first.
No, absolutely. My advice is very similar to Karl's, really, as a takeaway. Most certainly kind of listen more than you talk. Don't try and do everything on day 1. You don't have to prove your value in kind of week 1. Kind of listen and absorb the environment you're in. I think it can sometimes kind of upset kind of new colleagues if you go in there and you're a bit of a know-it-all, and I did this and I do that. We've all kind of met them. So I think it's maybe take it steady, listen, absorb the information you're given, and at least wait till week 2 till you try and recreate and redesign the whole business. So, absolutely. Cool. Good, brilliant. I think we've covered some really good points there. Katie, I think you're going to tell us a bit about the job market.
Yeah, well, sort of back again been back on and off sort of flexi furlough, if you like. And I think as furlough now comes to an end at the end of October, unfortunately, we will see another wave, if you like, of redundancies, but not necessarily all involuntary. There's going to be people out there where business have had to restructure, and the role that's on offer to them might not be necessarily what they want anymore. So people leaving jobs, and with that we see restructures. There'll be roles available. So we're hoping sort of the beginning of November we will see more jobs and more roles out there for us to work on, and for people to recruit for directly. And for us as a business, we've been doing a lot of work with new openings. Had another role come on this week for a hotel that had to sort of put their opening for this year on hold, but they're rolling forward for it for March now. So there's opportunity there for candidates for new build properties. So yeah, I mean, touch and go, but it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's a bit more positive out there.
Yeah.
As I was chatting to someone earlier, I think people are looking forward. I think we've got a little bit more direction in terms of, I think this is now the new norm till kind of spring next year. So businesses can plan a little bit better than when Boris was giving us different conflicting information every other day, and you can plan what you're doing the next hour, let alone what you're doing in the next kind of month. But I think we've got a bit more direction. Sadly, there are still parts of our industry that are, you know, not open and are really struggling at the moment. But I think those who are, obviously the staycation boom is still continuing, and I'm speaking to people with those leisure-based businesses, and they've got, you know, very high occupancy levels now till next year, which is great that, you know, some parts of our industry are still moving forward. So.
I spoke to a client this morning who their business has completely switched in terms of they're based in Cambridge, and typically they're booming throughout the week when it comes to corporate, but that's obviously naturally taken a bit of a dip. But now they're running at sort of 70% occupancy over the weekends, which is something that didn't really exist before, but they are running at their maximum capacity because of when with social distancing guidelines in place, they can only run at sort of 70% anyway. So that was positive, and that particular hotel hadn't had to make any cuts and had only still got 10 people on flexi furlough, which they were hoping to bring back as well. So I think it just depends on where you are and what you have on offer.
Slowly, green shoots, they keep saying, don't they?
Mm.
Cool. So yeah, we've got a couple of questions that have come through, so I'll put this to you all. So someone's just asked, I've recently changed roles, and on the first week I felt I wasn't clicking with the team. What would you suggest I do to help get my team on side, or should I just hope for the best? Apart from lunch or beers.
I was going to say, practice your tea and coffee making skills maybe a bit more.
Yeah, maybe just not making them a brew. I don't know.
I think the only thing I would say is maybe to do something where you're outside the office environment, so they get to know you without being around the office walls. So maybe whether that's if you have a half an hour lunch break, you go out with the team for half an hour, and you all just go out and have that half an hour to kind of group and really get to know each other. Because I think when you're in that office environment, they're going to have that click because they've built that relationship over a number of years, and you're the new person going into that office. So it's making that effort to feel part of the team, whether that's going by in Dunkin' Donuts the next day, you come in and give it to the team as a bit of a surprise, and that'll kind of maybe open up other relationships with other people, which might help.
Donuts always work. Always.
Yeah.
Donuts are the way forward.
Sales managers forever bringing in treats for those sales office too to get them on side.
Everyone likes a sugar rush. I think you have to be aware as a new starter that everyone else is on edge because there's
You're the new starter, yeah.
Competition come in, and I think Scott just alluded to they might already have a social click, and unfortunately you're not in it. So I think there is a bit of kind of biding your time and let it take its course, or just revert to donuts. Absolutely, get them involved.
And I think a week's certainly too quick to judge really on whether you actually click with somebody or not. I mean, I still don't click with everybody here. Will. I'm joking.
A good thing is if you've got a stronger skill in an area that they maybe lack, by helping that other individual in an area that they're not unsure about, helps grow that. So look at where you complement somebody else within that team, and help them, encourage them. Might be key, maybe on systems, it may be on, I don't know, simple things, but by going in and showing them and helping them and guiding them, it might actually help.
Just go above and beyond, maybe, maybe working a little bit later to help someone else out, or covering a shift that someone else can do. Or it obviously depends on what level of role you are, but maybe just going above the expected, which you should do anyway in a new role anyway. But if there's someone, you can help someone who needs, and probably related to what Scott's just said, absolutely just going a little bit above the expected.
I think going back to what Karl was saying earlier about listening, maybe that person needs to look back at the first week and say, how did I go about my first week? Was I the bull in the china shop, or did I sit and listen and, only offer my opinion when it was asked for? Look at yourself before you look at all the others.
Yeah.
If you're the boss and they're your team, ask them, but maybe not as a group, as a one, have a coffee chat with each of them. It depends on the exact scenario of sort of try and understand what makes them tick. And again, it's listening to them, but ask about them and be interested in them.
I think as a boss or as a manager, I think you should sense these things. You can most certainly, in a small team, you can most certainly sense if people aren't getting on, or if there's a bit of hostility, but they're just not gelling. So I think in those kind of early doors one-to-ones with the new starter, absolutely. And sort of thing of maybe having a gentle chat with some team members to ensure they're kind of doing their utmost to welcome that. I think it's definitely a manager's responsibility to kind of guide that. Absolutely.
I read a good thing last week. Sorry, Will. I read a good thing last week that said, prepare a wee introduction. just 20, 30 seconds about why you're there, why you're excited about it, what made you join, why you love the business, the industry, not what you've done. I think it was Karl said earlier, we've all done it ourselves, and we've heard people say, well, I was at the such and such, and we've all learned the hard way that just puts people's backs up, whether you're right, wrong, or indifferent. I think we've bored Scott. He's fallen off his chair. And I like that idea of having a little consistent thing that you can say that actually talks about why you've chosen them to want to work with them, and not what you've done. And that might be quite a good way for people going into jobs to address that.
Yeah. But everyone does it. And we always take the mick out of people when they come into our office, because they're always, I did this, and I was exec chef here, and I was, and I did this. And after about, when we get comfortable in the environment, within a month, we're taking the mick out of them, because that's what they're saying. But no, everyone's got their history. Maybe, we're probably all proud of the careers we've carved. Yeah. It's just a natural thing to, maybe it's you just kind of making your statement of your background, because they've not read your LinkedIn account already. Because everyone kind of always stalks their new colleagues. It's quite easy to do that these days, isn't it? So.
When the job announcement's gone out, don't you?
Yeah, they're all over you, aren't they? Absolutely. So, or you're looking forward to that, putting that on LinkedIn. You've got a new job and seeing what kind of reaction you get. We all like a bit of flattery, don't we? So it's all good. So we've got another question coming. I'm starting a new job, and I've just found out that a senior member of staff is someone I never got on with previously, and I left due to that behaviour. Should I mention this to my new manager? So they've joined a job and realised they're going to be working with someone they never got on with before in the previous role. How would you handle that?
I think it'd be between that. I think it would be between. You'd have to approach them. I mean, if you need to weigh up, really, is the issue that you had with the person worth not taking the role, and what were the issues? How long ago were there? And try and have a sort of a face-to-face conversation. Try and iron it out before the anxiety sets in for your first day, I guess.
People change.
I think that comes down to communication at the very beginning. So you recognise as an individual that's working in that organisation, you don't know how long they've been there for and what his relationship is with that manager. So by creating a storm in a teacup before you've even set foot in the door isn't a professional way to go about it. So a professional way of handling it would be to speak to the person directly and just, it's water under the bridge. We've both moved on. If you recognise what your faults were between both individuals, correct it and move forward, but don't hang on to something that's going to cause really bad impression on your first day, because it's a new job, new start, new opportunity, and don't let something drag you backwards. Go forward and just handle it one-on-one.
Yeah, be professional. I wouldn't put your head in the sand either and try to ignore it and try to because it would just be a bit of an elephant in the room, won't it?
Yeah.
And the reality with the hotels and hospitalities is that you're always going to end up working with somebody that you've worked with previously, and that's regardless whether you liked them or not. That's why our industry is such a small one at times.
And not everyone likes everyone.
No.
So, be professional. You've both got jobs, you're colleagues, you're not friends. Really good point here, actually, is you don't have to be friends with everyone at work. It's not a social club. You're all professionals. You've got to get on. So like you have to be best mates with everyone. It's sometimes a bit.
You've all got the same goal, and that's sort of customer experience. So you're all there for the same thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
We covered that one.
I think so.
Yeah, so that's all done. So, has anyone got anything to add at all? So I think we've covered some really good ground there.
I think we've pretty much covered everything we said we would.
Yeah. Good point. Covered it. Lovely. Brilliant. Cool. So I'll just wrap things up. Cool. Lovely. So. Well, thanks for joining us today, guys. It was our final webinar of this series. So hopefully that's kind of added value to anyone who's hopefully in the current climate has successfully secures a new role, and there might be a few nerves and queries about going back into work. We probably have a bit of realization that people might have been out of work for quite a while now, so a new first day is probably more daunting than a normal first day. Especially in a job short market, they want to make sure it works, and they're there, past that 3-month or 6-month period. So hopefully some of the things we've discussed today could go towards that and make it handy. So as always, we've recorded this, so it'll go onto our website in the next hour or so, fingers crossed. And big thank you to all our guests who spared some time today, and good luck with your job searches. There is stuff out there and it is moving, so as always, we'll support you as much as we can, but as soon as we hear anything out there, we'll be in touch. So, big thank you to you all. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.